Now, in the past, when I have been asked by a fellow hi-fi enthusiast about European loudspeakers, the brands that come to mind are Bowers and Wilkins, Harbeth, Meridian, Wharfedale, the brands like that. The truth is, the British aren't the only ones that are capable of great sound, so rather than focus our attention on yet another UK speaker, let's travel south and give a little love to the Italians, shall we? So subscribe and hit that like button, and let's see what Sonus Faber's up to nowadays with their brand new Lumina II bookshelf loudspeaker. The Lumina II from Sonus Faber isn't an update of the popular Lumina I, but rather a continuation of the Lumina line, resulting in an all-new, larger bookshelf speaker. The Lumina II is a two-way vented box loudspeaker that features a 1-inch silk diaphragm tweeter that Sonus Faber has dubbed a damped apex dome, or DAD for short. The mid-bass driver is larger with the two, stepping up to a 6-inch driver. The larger mid-bass driver, along with the speaker's larger overall volume, not to mention its front-facing reflex port, gives the Lumina II a reported frequency response of 55 Hz to 24 kHz, with a sensitivity of 86 dB into 4 ohms. Even when building a more moderately priced loudspeaker, a Sonus Faber loudspeaker must exude style. And I must say, while the Lumina II isn't the most outrageous looking Sonus Faber speaker there is, it's still very much on brand. And from a visual standpoint, I absolutely love it. The speaker is made in Italy, is wrapped in black leather, and is faced in your choice of 3 wood finishes: black, wenge, or walnut. You're seeing the walnut in this video. We've had to keep the Lumina II under wraps for a bit, during which time we have gotten to play with them on a host of associated equipment. Our favorite pairings have been the Rotel A11 Tribute, the Rotel 1580 MK2 AV receiver, where the Lumina IIs could be used as left and right main channels, along with the Lumina Center and Lumina 1 for surrounds. Now, we didn't have the Center or the Lumina 1 on hand to test this, but it's very clear that Sonus Faber is hoping that the Lumina series appeals to both hi-fi and home theater enthusiasts alike. Other pairings that I also liked with the Lumina II were the Cambridge Audio AXR 100 stereo receiver that we just reviewed, Musical Fidelity's M5SI, as well as the Canner AI210 hybrid integrated amplifier. The Lumina IIs aren't overly difficult to drive, despite their specs, so one doesn't have to spend a ton of money building a system around these rather compact two-ways. But we did discover that as we stepped up in the hi-fi food chain with respect to power and price, the Lumina IIs proved capable enough to resolve the differences in higher price gear. So while not outright cheap, the Lumina IIs may be more of a longer term investment type speaker. The kind that you would pair them with what you have now and keep them for the long haul as you upgrade your components down the road. So what do the IIs sound like? Nothing, and I mean nothing like UK-based loudspeakers. The Lumina II isn't a dry, polite, warm, or reserved loudspeaker. It's engaging. Don't mistake engaging for forward, lean, bright, or harsh, because it's none of those things either. The Lumina II is incredibly well balanced, though not entirely neutral, as there is a bit of top-end emphasis that helps give it just a little bit of tood that I know I responded well to, but that Christy outright loves. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Starting with the bass, the Lumina II does not play deep. Let me repeat that. The Lumina II does not play deep. So if you want a full range sound from either your music or movies, the two must be paired with a sub. That said, the bass the Lumina II does have is very, very good. It is firm, it is agile, well dampened, and able to fully communicate the point of impact with great detail and texture. It just isn't going to be the weightiest when doing so. With the right amplifier, or a slightly more powerful one, it is possible to maybe eke out a little bit more depth, but really the gains you hear will come in the form of even greater detail and more speed. Now, with respect to mid-range, along with the bass, I feel as if the Lumina II is going for textbook accuracy, with virtually no coloration being injected by the speaker itself. The mid-range of this speaker is incredibly clear, very focused, and among the more, dare I say, transparent to the source that I have heard at this price. There is an immediacy to its performance that, with the right recordings, vocal heavy ones especially, borders on electrostatic-like. Fans of Martin Logan are immediately going to know what I'm on about, but there's just no real boxy vibe to the speaker's mid-range at all, and if you knock on the Lumina 2 itself, you'll discover that resonances are held in check, which has an effect that is almost immediately noticeable throughout the mid-range. More importantly, the Lumina 2's mid-range performance sounds positively spot on with virtually all types of music. As for the speaker's treble response, here's where I think Sonus Faber may be injecting just a little bit of flavor into the mix. For the tweeter, while good, it's not what I would describe as wholly neutral. I suspect there is a mild to maybe not so mild enhancement of the 2's treble response. I don't mind it myself, though I will admit that with some recordings and at high volumes, I felt as if the tweeter could get a bit zippy. It's not harsh, it's not beamy, nor is it really, if ever, fatiguing, but there does seem to be a point where high frequencies go from being natural and organic to maybe just a little bit more synthesized. Still, the amount of high frequency detail is astonishing, and it lends a bit of added clarity and intelligibility to the rest of the speaker's response. However, because the tweeter is likely just a touch hot, you may feel that the Lumina 2's overall sonic signature skews on the side of being forward or cool. But I think once you understand what the tweeter is doing, you realize that it's more or less just putting a bit of added punctuation on an otherwise fairly neutral sounding speaker. The high-frequency response and the tweeter's ability to resolve just insane amounts of detail, especially at this price, helps to give the Lumina 2 a soundstage presence that just feels far more high-end than perhaps well-to-do enthusiasts would likely admit. The speaker's dispersion and center focus, they're all top-notch, perhaps among the best you're likely to hear at around $1,000. And the soundstage depth and width is boundary-defying, and the speakers themselves completely orally disappear within it. With the Musical Fidelity M5SI or Cantor amplifier, the separation between instruments and performers within the soundstage became even more clear, which elevated my opinion of the speaker in this regard over, say, pairing it with the Cambridge Audio AXR 100, where I just kind of felt as if the speaker was a little soft around the edges. Dynamically speaking, here's another area where having just a little bit more power or a slightly better amp will pay dividends. Make no mistake, you can absolutely rock out with the Lumina 2s on an amp as modest as the Cambridge Audio AXA35, but if you jump up to even the Rotel A11 Tribute, be prepared to be pleasantly surprised. These speakers have real reflexes and can bob and weave with the best of them. Sure, a bit more weight down low would aid in making the dynamics of this tiny two-way feel just a little bit more grounded, but for what it is, the dynamics are completely satisfying. And while you may not look or think about Sonus Faber and go, rock on, the truth is the Lumina 2 absolutely slaps. So what don't I like? Sound-wise, absolutely nothing. I'll get into comparisons in just a moment, but for me, the biggest issue that I see with the Lumina 2 is availability. This is a really great speaker, one that I think has an approachable price, not to mention look, and yet for some reason it's not available to buy online. I'm all for supporting dealers, I am, but I'm also not going to lie to myself and ignore the reality and say that everyone has a Sonus Faber dealer nearby when they don't. As a result, you simply may not get a chance to experience this speaker for yourself, and if you can't experience it, you're likely not as apt to buy it. And this is a shame, because the Lumina series, specifically the Lumina 2, appears ready to do battle with just some of the heaviest hitters in the space, and if my experience with it is any indication, I could see many enthusiasts picking it over the competition. Speaking of competition, the Lumina 2 compares favorably with the likes of Focal CHORA 806, Bowers and Wilkins 606 S2, and the WHARFEDALE EVO 4.1. I love the Focal CHORA 806 sound and even like its look, but the Lumina 2 with respect to build quality completely destroys the Focal. Sound-wise, these two speakers are fairly evenly matched though, and I think in this instance I prefer the Sonus Faber as it's just a little bit more balanced top to bottom for me, despite having that mildly tipped up treble response much like the CHORA. Don't get me wrong, the CHORA is still a great speaker, but at about $100 more, I think the Lumina 2 rewards you for your added investment. Not for a lack of trying, but I have not yet heard the new Bowers and Wilkins 606 S2, but On paper, the 606S2 appears to be comparable to the Lumina II. Based purely on what I know of B&W 600 series speakers of the past and the brand's new current higher-end speakers, I think you're going to have a mildly easier time driving the Lumina IIs, not to mention just finding gear that is going to pair well with them. I also think the Sonus Faber speakers look better and are finished to a higher standard for relatively the same price. But the B&Ws are easier for people to get their hands on, and that very easily could be what matters most in the end. If you're looking for a speaker that is like the Lumina II but don't quite have the budget, I highly recommend that you check out the WHARFEDALE EVO 4.1. The EVO is a surprisingly competent loudspeaker, both in terms of its build quality and sound, and it more than gives the Sonus Faber a run for its money, even besting it, in my opinion, when it comes to bass. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because my review of the EVO is coming soon. And just because I know you're going to ask, I believe the Lumina II is a more mature and refined loudspeaker compared to the KLIPSCH 600M. Nothing against the 600M, that speaker is insane value for the money, and I still believe it's a great choice and best the Sonus Faber when it comes to bass. But if I have to pick between the two, and budget isn't a factor, the Lumina II is where I'm putting my money. There isn't much more to say. The Sonus Faber Lumina II is phenomenal, both in terms of its styling as well as sound quality. I absolutely love it. And I know that it's not the cheapest two-way bookshelf loudspeaker by a long shot, but it's the type of speaker that makes listening to music more of an occasion because it's just not the same old boring black box. And that matters. Because I think the Lumina II is the type of speaker that you display proudly, and anything that's going to be out in the open is likely going to be used and listened to more often. And that is the point. So that's it. That is now my review of the Sonus Faber Lumina II, and now it's time to find out what Christy thought of them.
I love them.
Yeah, I know.
I mean...
You won't shut up about them.
Sorry, Sonus Faber. I don't know if you're going to get these back. Or I'm going to fight real hard to get them to stay. I think this is really starting to look like a very good year for new speakers because, we've had the KLH Model 5 that came out, the Forte 4s, both fantastic speakers. And I put this speaker from Sonus Faber right in line with those, which, those two speakers have been some of my favorites that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I love these.
Yeah.
They are so much fun. They're really different than the others that I've just mentioned.
Yeah.
But I just think that they have something really special. I agree with you 100%. They don't sound anything like, the speakers from across the pond, the Bowers and Wilkins and those speakers that you mentioned. Those are all great speaker companies. Nothing against them. I just think that the Sonus Faber. I mean, of course, this is the first time I've heard their speakers, so I really only have this
to go by.
Example to go by.
Yeah.
But if this is what their sound, if this is indicative of their sound, give me more.
Yeah.
I want to know more because I think that they sound they're fun, they're engaging.
Yeah.
There's nothing recessed or laid back about these at all, but like you said, that doesn't mean that they're harsh.
Yeah, they don't punch you or anything.
Or aggressive.
Like that.
They are not that. To me, when I think of speakers that are not U.S. made and that, or they're not like UK, European brands that aren't recessed but are more forward, I think of like Bucart.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
So this I think is like that in the between.
Yeah.
You
get some of that refinement, a little bit of that energy. It's a really nice balance.
They're very sophisticated, but still incredibly fun. And for such a small little speaker, I am blown away by how big they sound. And I'm not just talking about for music. Even movies have been so much fun to watch with these. I think that if you are somebody who is on the, more hard of hearing side, like you have a little bit of hearing difficulty, this is a speaker that I think is going to really help you. I fall into that camp to a certain extent. And I think that that's probably why I don't fall in love with speakers that are on the more like bass heavy side, because I think that injection of the heavy bass influences the mid-range and makes things a little less intelligible.
Sure. Where
something like this, it's not going to like shake your walls or whatever, but for me, I don't want that, and I think that hinders things in other areas. So it's a good thing for me.
Yeah, I will agree with you. I think that these are among the more intelligible loudspeakers, especially at this price
and size.
And the thing that wowed me about them is just the level of inflection that they get right without seeming like there's definitely a bump. There's definitely a rise in the treble. I don't know to what degree, but it's audible, but it still kind of fits, It's not out of control. It's not something that you're like, oh God, or you're going to reach for the tone control. It's weird. Sonus Faber has struck almost a perfect balance of giving you that little bit of treble rise without it really being overtly a problem. And as a result, the level of detail that you feel this speaker is capable of resolving just seems so insanely high, especially at this price point.
Yeah, they're really good. And if you've watched this channel and our post-review conversations before, we've talked about speakers or amplifiers or those combinations that have pulled me from out of my cave or office, in another room, and brought me out to want to listen. And these are definitely are included in that category.
Oh, immediately brought you out.
Immediately. I love the way they look. I think they're so beautiful. The touch of gold or brass or whatever you want to call it that outlines the woofers. It's just such a nice touch. It gives that element of sophistication that you don't always see in other speakers, and especially, I know they're not dirt cheap or anything, but I think the quality and the thoughtfulness in the design is really there, and often you have to spend a lot more money to get that. But unfortunately, like you mentioned, the problem is going to be how do you get them? You know, and again, I'm going to go back to talking about a younger generation. They're not going to hi-fi shops. They're just not, because those people, those hi-fi dealers, they're not interested in talking to some young kid, because if they're not going to waste their time if they don't think they have the money. Heck, that's happened to us, and we're clearly,
demographic.
Their freaking demographic. Yeah. And, for whatever reason, unless you hit the right person and, the right salesperson, they may not care to invest their time with you unless they know for sure you're going to buy with them. And I think that's short-sighted. That's not Sonus Faber's fault. That's a dealer problem. But I do think that if they were easier to get,
at least this series.
Yeah, that's the other thing I don't get, that I don't understand when it comes to brands that sell or that choose not to sell online, especially when you're under like $2,000 as far as price points go. Why? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think that we need to make the distinction. There are a couple of dealers in the U.S. that we have found that will show Sonus Faber on their website, but it's like a call to order or a in-store to buy situation. So it may look like it's available online, but ultimately it's not something that, like, right now, if I wanted to, I could click and buy and expect to see it in 3 to 4 days. And I just think that, you're putting
a barriers to the sale.
And if anything, the Lumina series, as far as I'm concerned, in looking at it and researching it, let it be the gateway product. That's clearly what it is. And so make it available everywhere, including your dealers. But let it be the thing that, someone whets their appetite on a Lumina speaker of any kind, 1, 2, whatever. And then maybe 10 years down the road when they make a better job or partner or whatever, they actually have a bigger home. Now it's like, okay, Sonus Faber is my brand. And
yeah, I think
then I'll go to a dealer.
Yeah, I totally think that would make a lot more sense. I think that, and this is kind of a broader topic, but I feel like the answer that we would get if you were to speak to a brand is like, well, I'm sorry, that a brand that does that practices this method, like no online sales. I think what they would probably say is, well, we really want the dealer and the buyer to have a better understanding of our products and to make sure that this is what is going to work best for them. And it's all about that relationship. I'm more than 100% sure that's the answer we would get back. But here's the problem I have with that. And I have seen the proof of this time and time again in our comments section. The problem is ultimately a lack of customer service. And you can have a dealer and somebody can go buy it, but then if, let's just say the product is maybe defective, I can't tell you how many times I've seen in the comments, someone's like, well, yeah, I bought this from a dealer and, maybe it was a higher priced unit and there's something wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
And they can't get anybody, whether it's the dealer or the brand, to help them with their problem.
Okay.
And to me, that's the issue. So don't give me this spiel that
that dealers somehow provide an extra level of
when it comes right down to it.
Okay, now I follow.
If there's a real issue,
Yeah.
You're not doing anything to solve the problem.
Yeah, and again, we're not talking about every dealer. Obviously, there are really, really good dealers out there in the world, and there are some not so great ones, and there are some that we know likely aren't in business anymore by no fault of their own, and some that are still in business that probably shouldn't be because they're so terrible. But I think the hobby has gone past this whole dealer versus online argument at this point. I think it was still a debate 5 years ago, 3 years ago. It's not a debate anymore. Like, at this point, I really have to question the motivation behind not just letting your dealers sell what they rep completely online, no different than anyone else. Because at some point, maybe there was a battle to be fought, and maybe you thought the dealer experience was going to win out, but that's just not the case. That's not what has happened. And so in 2021, especially going, after the last year that we've had, I mean, I know everyone walks around and goes, adapt or die. And it's like, no, really, everyone has had to adapt, and failure to do that, I don't see it working out for you. And it's a shame. I don't think Sonus Faber is going to go anywhere. I think eventually they probably will go this route, the route that we're talking about. I just wish that they would just do it. They just do it already. Or at least do it with the Lumina, because it's such a good product. It's such a good product.
Well, I think they would sell a ton of them.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they need to go Amazon or pick a Crutchfield, pick Best Buy, a reputable dealer or mass market dealer, if you will, Magnolia, that kind of thing. So there is an elevated aspect of it, but you're still able to be found. That's all.
Yeah, it is a very interesting topic or thing to think about, is how dealers have managed to, the few that are still around, like what are they doing to stay relative?
And I just think if you're able to buy your competitor somewhere, you need to be where your competitor is.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to be. That's all of the other personal anecdotes aside. If Sonus Faber is doing battle with Focal and Bowers and Wilkins, you need to be where Focal and Bowers and Wilkins is.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Because especially, like you said, especially with the more entry level to their, not saying cheap, but entry to their product line.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to reserve that high dollar, high end experience.
Yeah, for Manhattan.
To an in-person experience,
Yeah.
but the thing that's going to maybe get
volume.
get you some volume sales.
Yeah.
You know, again, stop being a part of the sales prevention department.
So that's it. That is now our review of the Sonus Faber Lumina 2 bookshelf loudspeaker. What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, I have a question of the day for you. And my question of the day is this: which non-US speaker company would you like to see more of, and why? We listen to your, well, suggestions, so please, let's get a list going and let us know what we need to be looking for in these companies and why you think they should have a spotlight shown on them over the same old, same old. Let us know. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. And also, it's a really important time to start subscribing to this channel. We know a lot of people that watch this channel are not yet subscribed. And as we approach 200,000 subscribers, I know that's an insane number, but as we get to 200,000, you're gonna wanna subscribe, because that particular episode is going to be epic, and it really is all about you. And so you're gonna, just trust me, you're gonna want to be subscribed. So go ahead and subscribe today if you haven't already, and make sure that your subscription is public so that we can see that you are subscribed. That's very important. If you use any of the links that Christy left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you all very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile, and that is it. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.